Ramos from JNN News, coming at you from Bell Gardens High School. Today we are tackling two big stories. First up, a dark chapter in American history, the Columbine High School shooting. Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado became the site of one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history. Two students by the name of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, armed with guns and explosives, killed 12 classmates and one teacher before taking their own lives. Over 20 others were injured. The attack wasn't just random, it was planned for months. The killers targeted specific students and even planted bombs in the cafeteria that thankfully failed to detonate. Police response was criticized for being too slow, changing how schools handle emergencies forever.
Klebold's plan involved something much worse than homemade pipe bomb grenades, as Sean Graves, still paralyzed and bleeding half inside the cafeteria door, was about to experience.
I started hearing the gunshots getting closer, and that's when I realized that they were coming down the stairs in the cafeteria. They just kept getting closer and closer and closer, and I started hearing explosions. But every time there was a shot, and then one of those larger booms went off, I flinched.
Harris and Klebold's killing spree had not just been planned as a shooting. Before they had opened fire that morning, they had placed two large explosive devices in the canteen. They had been timed to explode at 11:17 a.m., and the two students had planned to wait outside to pick off any survivors fleeing the scene.
Eric Harris had even gone so far as to study how many people were in the cafeteria at any given time during the lunch hour. So he set those bombs to go off when he would have the mass casualty. Approximately 450 is what he was estimating, and we had 455 kids down there.
The bomb's timers had not worked, which is why Harris and Klebold had begun their killing spree with their guns. However, they'd not given up on their dream of blowing up the school.
Well, I didn't know it at the time. There was actually a propane canister bomb, essentially, that was no more than 5 feet from where I was laying. And they were shooting at it, trying to get the bomb to go off.
Their new attempts to detonate the bombs only succeeded in a relatively small partial explosion and fire. But they were a sign of a highly planned, premeditated suicide mission.
These two students did not just snap. In this case, it was clear they began talking about doing something like this just about a little over a year before. Eric Harris's first entry in his journal, in his notebook, is April 10th, 1998. The first words I read, I think, kind of set the tone, and it was, I hate the effing world.
You know, he's not talking about hating jocks. He's not talking about, any kind of particular group. Later, he makes fun of just about everybody. People who drive too slow in the fast lane, people who say across instead of across, or, mispronounce words, any trivial thing, there's nothing too trivial for Eric to have contempt for you.
Dylan also had a lot of writings and notes that he left. His centered around his emotions, his feelings. He clearly stated he was depressed. He clearly stated that his life was a mess.
Dylan's journal went on for 2 years, and the very first page, he talks about killing himself. He had a miserable perception of himself, and often at complete odds with reality.
He was, in my mind, a classic adolescent depressive, or going through an adolescent depressive episode. When confronted with some of his inappropriate behavior, he would get extremely angry, whereas when people confronted Eric with some of his earlier misbehaviors, he would respond in a classic psychopathic way. He would tell you what you wanted to hear, promise never to do it again, and would be looking you in the eyes and deliberately telling you what he thought you wanted to hear.
Columbine shocked the nation and sparked debates over gun control, bullying, and mental health. But sadly, it wasn't the last. Schools nationwide now conduct active shooter drills, and Columbine became a grim reference point for future tragedies. So where are we now? Some survivors became activists, like Evan Todd, who was injured but later advocated for forgiveness. And while school security has improved, mass shootings remain a painful reality. A reminder to check on each other because kindness can be a lifesaver. And now we shift gears to a different kind of story that unites fans across the globe. The Europa League final has just passed around a week ago, and it led to the overcoming of Tottenham Hotspur against Manchester United. Two football giants clashed today in a high-stake battle for European glory. Tottenham Hotspur, last crowned champions in 1984, faced a Manchester side desperate to add a second trophy to their cabinet after a heartbreaking penalty loss in 2021. Tottenham's road there was paved with drama. Their last three head-to-head wins over Manchester give them a psychological edge. But in football, history doesn't play the game. Will Spurs end their 40-year drought, or will Manchester rewrite their own story? And finally, shout out to Mr. Ware at Bell Gardens High School. I'm Julian Ramos, reminding you, in sports and in life, every moment counts. Stay tuned for more updates, and as always, be the good news.
Benton Cool. Cross has got real purpose, and brilliant!